Dude, I look like I live in a van. It's kind of sick. I just need like a forearm tattoo. So in 2011, when I was about 11 years old, my parents got me a book for Christmas. This book was by Olympic softball player Jenny Finch. She was a pitcher who at her fastest threw like 78 miles an hour, which is pretty insane. That record was broken very recently though by the pitcher at Tennessee, Carlin Pickens. But at the time, Jenny Finch was the superstar. So as a softball player, I was very excited to get this book. It was called Throw Like a Girl, How to Believe in Yourself and Dream Big, or something like that. It was a pretty decent book. It told a lot about her life and her mental struggles and how she can turn confidence into better on-the-field performance. But as I read it, 11-year-old me got increasingly annoyed at parts of it. I really liked Jenny Finch. I had liked watching her play. So when she talked about being an athlete, it was kind of annoying to me how often she talked about also being a woman. But she didn't do anything wrong. It's very relevant in the early 2010s and in the 2000s as a woman athlete that it comes up a lot and people aren't very kind to her. I felt off about it. She had this whole section about how just because you're an athlete doesn't mean that you can't be a girly girl. Actually, you can do both. You can try to be pretty and you can run really hard. I found that really off-putting because it made it sound like if you're gonna be an athlete, well, you better be pretty while you do it. You better be feminine because when you're a little kid running around and you got a helmet on, you might be mistaken for a boy. And what could be worse than being a little boy? I don't know. I don't want to be feminine. I'm reading this book because I want to play softball, not because you're girly like that. Why would I care about that? But I'm sure that a lot of people related. In fact, a lot of my teammates, it seemed like, had the experience of needing to prove their gender, needing to prove that they're girls, because if they're tough and strong and, their bodies kind of reflect that, they're not tiny little frail things that girls are expected to be, they kind of get a lot of backlash from people, especially boys, around them. And that's really sad. So it makes sense she wanted to set that example. But I didn't like it because it contributed to the general sense that I got from everyone around me that if I'm going to be an athlete, I need to compensate for that in some way. Because that was the 2000s. It was girls are over here doing this thing and boys are over there doing that thing. And if girls want to do a boy thing, well, they better be really good at all the other girl things first. My point is that 2000s feminism was corporatized stuff was really bad, right? It was girl power and boys are stupid and girls are smart. And it was just very, girls are one thing and boys are another. We're different, but we're equal, so it's okay. It left absolutely no room for girls who weren't feminine, boys who weren't masculine, or people who just didn't care that much about being attractive. Why, when we were 10 years old, were people really concerned about how they look? That doesn't really make sense. I get why some girls wanted to wear makeup or whatever, but really being worried about how you look feels like something that should happen much later. But that was kind of the messaging. All that's to say, if you were to look up terms like pop feminism or 2010s feminism, or even what we're really going to talk about, which is body positivity, you're going to see a lot of really negative things about it. And I'm not really here to dispute that. I'm actually kind of here to add to it. Sorry. But I do want to point out that as bad as it was kind of an improvement on what was before it. 2010s feminism did not say boys and girls are super different and boys are over here doing one thing and girls are doing another. It was a lot more normal about that stuff. It wasn't considered groundbreaking in the 2010s for there to be female athletes who are known on a world stage. Women at the Olympics wasn't considered a groundbreaking day for feminism. Basically, the bar went from being in hell to being somewhere in the core of the earth. It could have been worse and it wasn't that bad, but they did still miss on 80% of stuff because, feminism isn't the corporate stuff that actually gets disseminated to everyone. It's much more academic than that. But there was still an idea in the 2010s that women are one thing and men are another, but this time women are better than men. It's that quote in Maisel where She's like, women would be better leaders, and we'd do it while being pretty.
Because they will fix it. And accessorize it.
I didn't even want to talk about feminism in this. I didn't really want to talk about anything that wasn't just body positivity, because I'm not really trying to do sociology. I'm trying to do, like, how should we approach relating to our own bodies? And the thing is, that's not a very male-centric topic. Like, of course feminism comes up because most men aren't thinking that critically about their bodies because nothing is forcing them to. Some kinds of men are. I think more queer men are. I think people whose, like, specific features about their body, like their skin color, like, puts them in danger, or even just, like, in a particular place in society, might think about it more. But even so, they're probably not thinking about it as much as women are. Except trans people. I think trans people are, across the board, thinking about it more than anyone, and we'll get back to that. But something that came out really strong in the 2010s was body positivity, and I'm gonna get into what was good and bad about it, but just to broadly define it, I think its main takeaway was that all bodies are beautiful, and everyone should love their body. It was an idea that you don't have to be skinny, you don't have to be white, you don't have to be able-bodied, whatever it is, you can love yourself anyways. You don't have to change in order to love yourself. And loving yourself and loving your body were seen as completely indistinguishable. So body positivity was one of the products of that era. It wasn't the only one. And I think that era actually did a lot of good. So we're going to talk about body positivity specifically, but real quick, the good of 2010's feminism, it does still need to be appreciated. I mean, the Me Too movement made it so that your average person knows the definition of the word consent. Like, again, the bar is still at the core of the earth, but that's a huge difference. Like, that makes a huge tangible difference in the safety of your average person. I think another thing that came from it was marketing was still trying to tell women that they weren't good enough, but they were a lot less likely to do it so directly. They weren't trying to say, you're not skinny, so you're ugly and you should feel bad about yourself. And honestly, 2000s commercials were doing that. Like, it got really bad. And it was even worse before the 2000s. Like, the 2000s didn't come out of nowhere. They were doing those commercials in, like, the 50s. There's also a movement for women supporting women, like girls supporting other girls and not waiting for male approval. The term male gaze, like, entered the lexicon, and while it was taken from its original film criticism context, I do think the idea that most things are for the audience of men and women simply get to be there is a really important thing to have in your head and to understand about what's around you. It can put things into context and make you think about why things are how they are rather than just taking things at face value. But in terms of what I noticed in my actual daily life, girls got nicer to me. People were just kinder. Women wanted to support each other. It felt good. It felt like you were doing feminism to be nice to other women. And that, I think, has made a huge difference. It is now considered unthinkably rude for someone to comment about someone else's body, whether it's like gaining a lot of weight or losing weight or whatever. And if you listen to the way that middle-aged women talk about random strangers walking by, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is a big difference, because we don't do that.
Oh, you look amazing, sweetie.
Oh, thanks.
Let's just say none of your friends have the figure to pull off that dress.
What?
It's a compliment!
And I think a lot of companies diversified their product lines so that more people could have access to them. They only did it to the extent to which they could market it and benefit from positive PR. But I would still prefer to live in a world where companies feel like they have to be progressive and they have to do good with their money, even if it is just performative, regardless of why they're doing that. I would prefer that over nothing, which is what we had before. Also, just as a quick aside, men kind of opted out of this whole thing. They didn't have to, and they were kind of, in a lot of ways, at least in academic and activist circles, they were invited in. Like, it was like, we're trying to deconstruct everything about womanhood. There's also a lot to deconstruct about manhood. Like, we got to talk about how toxic masculinity is hurting people. Like, it's hurting women, but it hurts the men first. And men largely opted out of the conversation. Like, they just were like, we can't be men anymore, and then, like, walked away. Or they were like, yeah, really crazy macho men couldn't be me. They're so stupid. I'm much smarter than that. And then they just, like, left it. That was, like, most men I knew were just like, yeah, I mean, if you feel that you have to prove your manhood, you're not really a man. And it was like, ugh. What does that do either? Like that doesn't mean anything. And so what we're seeing now is men kind of catching up in that conversation. Like men are kind of going through their own body positivity movement. And again, I'm seeing like them going through the same cycles that women did. Let's talk about that. What was it like for women to be in the body positivity movement? Who was it for and what good did it do? And to talk about body positivity, we have to talk about how we evaluate social movements. A product of the 2010s that I don't think was very good was very severe black and white thinking and an urge to like police our peers, an urge to be like, you can't say that, you can't do that, everything is completely black and white. We're not interested in reforming people, we're interested in cutting people off. To a certain extent, I get it. I'm glad that there started being consequences for action. But my point is, I want us to resist the urge to say, well, body positivity didn't work for everyone and it had flaws, so that means it was all bad. And if you use it in any capacity, you're bad. That's not the case. Honestly, if you use it and it helps you, I think you should keep doing it. Like, as long as you're not hurting other people, you got to do what you got to do to get through having a body in this life. Like, I don't know, it's really hard for people. I sympathize. And another thing is that social movements exist to respond to a status quo. They don't exist in a vacuum. Like, if we didn't live under patriarchy, there would be no need for body positivity, right? Like, I hope that that is understood by everyone, that body positivity was a response to what was going on in the 2000s, not a response to the world we're in now, which is a different world. And the last thing is, when you evaluate a social movement, it's not just about what did it do for the individual, it's also about what impact did it have. Because even if a movement has really good intentions, if it has a negative outcome on other people, whether they're in the movement or out, it's still accountable for that. Like, intentions and impact are not the same thing, but you're kind of responsible for both. That said, let's get into it. In the 2010s, the gatekeepers of pop culture were influencers. It was a shift away from TV networks and movie producers and fashion magazines being the great gatekeepers of culture. Random people on the internet could make culture from scratch if they wanted to. And they sure wanted to. Being an influencer can be very lucrative. The old gatekeepers of TV producers, movie producers, rich people, actors, athletes, I mean, whoever you believe disseminated culture, corporations, ad agencies, God, what a depressing group, fashion magazines, their power was diminishing very quickly in the 2010s as influencers rose up to take their place as gatekeepers of culture. And influencers wanted to sell you relatability. In the 2010s, that was the big way that you could make money on the internet, was by being relatable. So while the old gatekeepers maybe didn't want bodies that weren't thin and feminine and attractive to be super visible, influencers were who they were. And if their content was good, people were watching it. So they couldn't be kept out of the public eye, which helped normalize seeing people who aren't super thin or white or feminine as attractive. But when influencing is a job and adhering to traditional beauty standards is more lucrative, people start to do that. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing now, because body positivity was a trend, which means it comes into style and then it goes out of style. And the same people who were advocating for it 7-8 years ago, because it was super lucrative then, are now completely ignoring it, acting like it never existed, and keeping themselves as close proximity to whiteness, thinness, femininity, and wealth as they possibly can. That's true in their aesthetics, and that's also true in the actions that they take. So influencers break into the market with good intentions, being their authentic selves, and occasionally selling stuff because they need to, and then discover that it is more lucrative to try to sell confidence back to women, to do things that make them insecure, take their confidence away, and then withhold it on the basis of, well, these companies will pay me to sell these products. And if my audience feels great about how they look, I can't really sell them beauty products. Influencers kind of democratized the beauty standard until they didn't, because corporate money, instead of going to TV shows and movies and everything else, just went straight to the influencers, which is kind of depressing. It felt like a really hopeful time for a while because the beauty standard changed, right? Beauty standard went from unambiguously white, skinny, blonde, I mean, just as close to looking like a model as you possibly could, to ethnically ambiguous, but like still kind of white, curvy, although still relatively thin, and in a lot of ways having black features, which a lot of people credit the Kardashians for. The Kardashians just kind of copied whatever female rapper was popular at the time, or whatever male rappers were saying was an ideal trait in women, which is like, I don't know, like, aren't you embarrassed? Isn't that embarrassing? With all this horrible stuff happening, doesn't it kind of make sense that body positivity came out of this time? It could be used to sell things to women. It felt so much better than the horrible things happening to women in the 2000s. And I don't know, women kind of ate it up. And also, in real time, you could kind of feel a lot of positive impacts of this. Like I said, women started being nicer to each other about the beauty standards. They stopped enforcing it so much. People who previously were insecure about ethnic features that they had, like maybe their nose or like the shape of their face or something, would take more pride in it because it became publicly acceptable to celebrate that kind of thing. There were a lot of trends around breaking the cycle of eating disorders in families. Like the whole almond mom thing, I think that was a really good thing for people to look at the women in their lives and go, no, I don't have to suffer like you are. I don't have to do that. You don't have, like, you can't put that on me. I think you're crazy. I think that's a really good thing. I also think that fat people got a lot more comfortable wearing whatever they wanted. Like, we kind of lost the idea that you need to be skinny in order to wear something. Like, it was more like, you're gonna wear whatever you want. You're still gonna get rewarded more if you're skinny, but like, you should wear what you want. Seemed to be the prevailing idea. And the idea that everyone should love themselves no matter what was the prevalent theme throughout marketing, especially marketing to women, but also just marketing any products that had to do with bodies. And I think that stopped the continuous traumatization that advertising had had on young girls from previous generations. If you were a young girl in the 2010s, I'm sure you saw a lot of messed up stuff, but there's nowhere near as much bad stuff as there was in the 2000s. And that's a good thing, even if it is just companies virtue signaling. Less harm is still less harm. But I think above all, the biggest positive impact of body positivity was people with eating disorders. I'm going to talk about eating disorders for a second, so skip forward if you don't want that. Basically, if an eating disorder was rooted in the idea that how you look isn't good enough and you need to be thinner. And then there's this movement that says, actually, you don't. You never had to be. What they're telling you to do is very unhealthy and you should love yourself as you are. Your body is already beautiful. You can kind of see why that would like help people with recovery. And I think it helped a lot of people. It didn't help everyone. It didn't reach everyone. But I think it probably saved a lot of lives. I don't have any data on that, but it probably pulled a lot of people out of a dark place. And like I said earlier, if that's what got you through it, you should keep doing it. Like, you should keep doing your little affirmations. Like, whatever it takes for you to be healthy is that's what you got to do. It didn't resonate with everyone. It certainly did not resonate with me. And I know a lot of other people who found it a bit off. So let's talk about the problems. I think the biggest problem was it was so focused on aesthetics. Like, it did a good job breaking up the idea that thinness equals virtue. Like, if you're thin, that means you're a good person. And if you're not thin, that means you're a bad person. It broke that up. But it still insisted that there was value inherently in being beautiful. You're not thin, but that doesn't mean you aren't beautiful. And it's like, well, why do I have to be beautiful? Like, why is it so important that I feel like I'm beautiful? If I didn't, should I feel bad about myself? I'm thinking, like, obviously not. Why are we still emphasizing aesthetics? But they were. And I think a big reason for that is what can be corporatized. That is what can be sold back to you. And I personally resent when stuff is sold to me. I resented the entire decade how so much of marketing was just based on the idea that you need to be pretty. And you don't need to be pretty. Like, it's cool, but it's not like the most important thing. Bless you. I also think it was uncomfortable how much it was gendered. If your whole marketing is that everyone should feel like they're beautiful and everyone should love themselves, then how come all the spokespeople for it were women? How come most of the spokespeople for it were Black women? If your company believes in that so much, then how come this is the first time you've had a Black person be like front and center? Don't you think that that's like a little disingenuous? You know, and they never really seemed to have men involved. There would be gender neutral products that would be sold more so to women because I guess they just didn't think men were susceptible to that kind of marketing. And I found that insulting. Like, why do you need to market something different to me based on my gender? That feels insulting. There is a difference between academic feminism of the era and well thought out radical thinking of the era and what was actually disseminated, because corporations can market what their ideologies are a lot better than like some professor, activists and organizers in a city or whatever. Like the messaging came from corporations primarily, and so that's primarily what I'm critiquing. I'm not saying that fat activists at the time or that Black organizers and leaders were like super off. I don't think they were. I think they were also frustrated with how their aesthetics were being sold back to them. There was also a kind of horror that happened. Maybe that's a dramatic way of putting it. In the 2010s, I had a lot of thin white friends because I was an athlete and I played a sport that was like primarily white. I mean, a lot of Hispanic people play softball, and I know a lot of people play softball in Asia, but like in the neighborhood I grew up in, most people, at least until I got into high school, were white. I watched these girls experience going from their body being considered like the epitome of beauty, like they're young, they're thin, they're feminine, to actually you're not curvy enough and it's not interesting when you're not ethnically ambiguous and your lips are too thin. Let's make fun of white people lips. And like, and don't get me wrong, a lot of that stuff was funny. Like it was kind of funny. It's entertaining to see a social order kind of reversed like that. But like, white boys weren't feeling insecure at that time. It was only white girls. The experience of feeling your body go from in style to something we make fun of was pretty horrible. And I think that there's a reason a lot of people got lip filler and things that, you know, they really didn't need to get. It was because, like, well, they've experienced what it's like to be considered really pretty by pretty much everyone, and then it was taken away from them, even though nothing about them changed. Obviously, you're still better off being one of them than being, like, overweight or trans or disabled or something, but it was still a pretty horrible experience, I think, for a lot of girls in a way that boys in the same social order never had to experience anything like. Also, I'm all for critiquing white women, but a lot of the time when people critique white women, it's just so that they can like get away with misogyny. Like you want to insult all women, but you're afraid of the pushback you'll get, so you just insult white women. I don't know. It's different every time. It's a case-by-case basis, but people were making fun of white women for stuff that they weren't even thinking about with white men. And if you were overweight or if you had dark skin or something, like, let's be clear, these changing body standards didn't actually help you. Maybe you got slightly better proximity to the beauty standard, but you still weren't in the club. Like, it was still a white thin woman's game. Everything was focused on aesthetics. Even, I remember one time in my high school sociology class that was a class full of athletes because it was just one semester. All the athletes needed something we could just take in the fall. My sociology professor showed us 2 magazines, and one of them was like, you know, one of those magazines from the 2000s that was like, here's how you can lose weight or whatever. And he was like, what's wrong with this? And we're all like, well, why does she need to lose weight? She's already skinnier than your average person. Like, what? Oh, that seems kind of crazy. Then he showed us another magazine that was more recent. It had a woman doing a deadlift, and she was like reasonably muscular. I mean, nothing crazy, but like she was clearly an athlete. It was captioned, "Strong is the new beautiful." And he said, well, what do you guys think about this? Do you think this is better? And at first everyone's like, oh yeah, that's better. And then we all kind of like sat with it for a moment, and we were all like, I still don't like it. We kind of figured out it's still an expectation on women's bodies that equates good to pretty. Strong is the new beautiful, and beautiful was good. So strong is the new good. You see how those are like interchangeable? Why is there still an expectation? So we go from women have to be pretty to women have to be strong. That's not really how men's magazines portray it. Men's magazines portray it like, wouldn't it be cool if you had abs? Wouldn't it be so sick if you had like big biceps? That'd be awesome. We'll show you how to do that. The tone is just very different and a lot less condescending. And then I saw a lot of bad things like in my personal life that I observed from real life, not just on social media, including a lot of misinformation, a lot of lies about health, and also some like weird behaviors. I'll start with the least important of it because it's not that big of a deal, but I remember if you valued being in shape, and this is for at any point in the 2010s, if you valued being in good shape, and part of that for you was losing weight, even if objectively it was a good idea in terms of just for your health, you would get like pushback around it. And I think what was happening was the body positivity movement gave people permission to be unhealthy. Now, to be clear, they never needed permission for that. You don't owe anyone health. Your body is just your body. You losing weight is not a moral obligation. It's not a social obligation. You don't have an obligation to lose weight. But if you decided you wanted to, I think it felt to some people like you were taking that permission away, because if I'm overweight and you're overweight, and then, a few months later I'm not overweight, do you now feel different about the fact that you are? And I think a lot of people did. And so there was a lot of pushback around trying to be healthy. And part of that led to a lot of misinformation, such as the myth of you can be healthy at any size. While health is definitely worth pursuing and like exercise is worth doing at any size, the idea that you can be healthy at extreme levels of overweight or extreme levels of underweight is just inaccurate. And there was never a reason to spread that. They were trying to counteract the idea that the reason people are mean to fat people is that it's good for them because it'll get them to lose weight. And obviously that's not true. Like if that were true, then there would be like a procedure for it that came from like health insurance companies. Like that's not what's happening. It probably makes it significantly worse because losing weight isn't something you just go and do and get out of the way. It's like a continuous process that requires a tremendous amount of effort and discipline. And you can't really do that when there's like a bully in your head all the time. So you can understand why they wanted to counteract that. But instead of responding by saying, health isn't an obligation, it's great if people want to be healthy, but they don't owe it to you. Instead, they responded with, no, actually, we're all healthy. That is just inaccurate. Not everyone said it. It wasn't absolutely everywhere, but it was pretty prevalent messaging that I think got into a lot of people's heads. There also developed this hypervigilance around eating disorders, especially among girls. I don't know if boys or men are super vigilant about this stuff. I don't think they are, but women since the 2010s have been very aware of each other's eating habits, like making sure each other will eat breakfast or, noticing if someone is not eating much food because they're looking out for eating disorders. And again, I'm going to talk about eating disorders for a minute. So skip forward if you don't want to hear about it. Something I would hear a lot is if you count your calories or your protein or whatever macros, then you have an eating disorder. It is a 1-to-1. You cannot count calories. That is disordered eating no matter what. And that isn't true. What is true is that someone who has an eating disorder that's based on restriction probably shouldn't count their calories. It probably wouldn't be good for them. They probably shouldn't weigh themselves. It's probably not the healthiest thing for them to do. And so they shouldn't do that. But respectfully, that has nothing to do with someone else. If someone doesn't have a history of eating disorders and they would benefit from counting their calories so that they can be more certain of their eating habits being effective, or so that they can try to put on muscle, whatever they're trying to do, they can do that. It doesn't harm anyone. I mean, it's like horribly inconvenient, but like you don't have to do it forever. You do it for a little bit and then you develop an intuition. That's not an eating disorder. And if you were like caught doing it, it was seen as a bad sign. Like so many people asked me throughout college, like if everything was okay because I was like counting my protein. And I was like, well, I'm an athlete. Like I have to eat a lot of protein and it's hard for me to do it. I don't just instinctually do it, but I will lose weight over the course of the season. I'll lose muscle because I'm exhausted all the time if I'm not eating enough protein. Like that's just how it is. That's not disordered. To someone else in a different situation, it might be. And last thing is, I think that it had the negative effect of convincing people that if you care about how you look and if you want to change how you look, whether you're trying to lose weight or something else, something unrelated, then you are reinforcing beauty standards. And that is inherently bad. And I don't think that's true. And I think the best example of that is if you look at when trans people change how they look. A trans guy is a trans guy before they cut all their hair off, right? Like that has nothing, gender is not stored in the hair. And that makes sense to us, but you can understand why a trans guy is like pretty excited to build muscle, right? Like, are you gonna tell them to stop? I'm not. And I think the same applies to cisgender people. I think that everyone can find some sort of gender affirmation feeling through working out. I mean, probably not everyone. Like for me, I love feeling more masculine, and I'm going to feel more masculine if I have like strong shoulders. And that I think that's really cool, and I don't think it hurts anyone. It's just a matter of letting my exterior appearance match my interior expression. I hope that makes sense. Again, just because I'm saying body positivity did a lot of bad and continued a lot of harm doesn't mean that if it helped you, if it got you on the right track or helped you recover from something, that you need to stop or anything. Like, you got to do what you got to do. There's nothing wrong with saying affirmations or with loving how your body looks. Or if you don't feel like you ever need to change how your body is, that's totally fine. But I hope by now you can see why a lot of people found it very disingenuous and just not applicable for them. So the response to it was body neutrality for some people. Other people just like went back to trying to be skinny and not critically thinking about it at all. Hopefully you weren't one of those people. But regardless, body neutrality is the idea that instead of loving your body because it's beautiful and loving it no matter what, is accepting that maybe you feel neutral about how you look. You don't have to love it all the time, and it's okay to sometimes be frustrated with it. Body neutrality, as it is popularly presented, emphasizes more what your body can do as opposed to what it looks like. It focuses on how your body feels, on what it's capable of. It celebrates things like running a 5K or being able to lift heavy weights or doing stretches and feeling good. It takes the value out of aesthetics and brings it into what your body can do. Function over form. The thing about body neutrality is a lot of people pointed out that that's kind of just how men do it, right? Like, they don't always love how they look, but they're not thinking too deeply about it, at least when they grow up. I'm sure a lot of teenage boys are thinking about it no matter what. Grown men are not spending a lot of time being really insecure about how they look. And if they are, it has to do with like their face or their hair or whatever. It's not like them drastically overthinking about they're a little overweight or they don't have big triceps or whatever. Like, maybe they like the idea of trying to change how they look, but they're not obsessing with it the way that women are. And the idea of telling themselves that they're beautiful, it just doesn't really appeal to them because they don't feel like they have to be beautiful. So that sounds like a big improvement. And I think that it is. Instead of conceding that beauty makes you a good person, it was like, no, if you're a good person, you're a good person. You don't need to be pretty. Just focus on what your body can do and just try to be grateful for that. And this was something that was a lot more interesting to me. And to a certain extent, I felt like I was already doing what they were talking about. I mean, I wasn't, but I felt like I was. I'll explain what I mean by that. But one of the first like strong objections to it that I saw, not necessarily objections to specifically body neutrality, but the idea that you should love your body for what it can do, was from disabled people. I would encourage you to watch this entire video about a disabled woman who sometimes hates her body because of all the problems it presents.
I was born with 2 genetic disabilities. One affects my nerves and the other my connective tissues and organs. Don't back me in a fight. I can't pass a hearing test. I can't see out of one eye. Can't actually feel my fingers. Occasionally my daily pain level rises so high that all I can do is lie on the floor and moan. And you don't need to feel any kind of way about it. You don't need to feel sad for me. You don't need to tell me I'm amazing just for getting out of bed today. It's fine. And you don't need to tell me that I look great. We're so driven to tell someone that they look great or they're beautiful because we can't even begin to fathom that they could be happy any other way. I have a disability and it alters my life. It isn't irrelevant. My flaws aren't beautiful, but they aren't awful either. They just are. I don't allow myself to feel negative about my body, but I don't love it either. I can't be my body's enemy. I'm allowed to be rude about it when I want. Doesn't mean that I hate it. I'm just more objective.
If you love your body for what it can do, will you resent it for what it can't do? If you can do something now and you can't do it in a month or a week or something, are you mad at your body? Are you upset about that? Do you feel deprived? It kind of logically follows that you would, right? Especially like if you put effort into being able to run and then you sprain your ankle or something, like what then? I think especially for disabled people, it feels kind of inaccessible, especially when your disability changes over time. For example, I have arthritis and my right arm sometimes is very functional and sometimes isn't functional at all. Sometimes it is as if I don't have a right arm. I don't want to be like super angry at my arm all the time. Like, I don't know. I just don't want to. And so I'm never like, oh, I love my right arm because it can lift heavy weights and it's capable and it can throw a softball really hard. It's like, well, yeah, it can until it can't. So I wouldn't say that body neutrality is something that would work for me. Like, it's not really possible. And it isn't just my arm that's like that. In theory, any of my joints could go that direction. It's not in my control. Honestly, it's more of a reflection of the quality of healthcare I get at any given moment, because that changes over time too. And in case you're thinking, well, yeah, but that doesn't apply to me, and these social movements don't have to apply to everyone, I would always be extra hesitant about things that don't apply to disabled people. Because if they don't apply to disabled people, they may not apply to you at some point. Because if you're lucky, you'll live long enough that you will become disabled. Or if you're unlucky, you'll become disabled when you're young. And it's something that we are all one freak accident away from happening, or not even a freak accident. I mean, you could just go to a doctor and they could discover an inconvenient condition. It might make your life that much harder because your body is limited in what it can do. Does that mean you should love yourself less? The fact of the matter is, a lot of disabled people, they really do resent their bodies, and they don't need to be told that they should love their bodies anyways, and they certainly don't need to be told that the basis of their love for their bodies should be what their body is capable of, because their body probably isn't capable of what yours is, so you really shouldn't say stuff like that to them. And people do. People say really weird stuff to people with disabilities. I also think body neutrality, it can kind of diminish the value of looks. And again, every time I say terms like body neutrality or body positivity, you might think of one thing and I might think of another. We existed in different places on the internet just by virtue of we're different individuals throughout all these years where these terms have come and gone. So we've been given different impressions over what their actual definitions are. So this point may or may not apply depending on what you believe body neutrality is, though I think a lot of body neutrality advocates kind of diminish the value of caring about how you look. It really can be really important for people, not just as like self-expression, but also as communication, right? Like when you're part of a community, sometimes looking like your fellow community members matters. If you go to work and you wear a work uniform, there is an automatic acceptance there. If you go to an office and everyone dresses like business casual and you're not dressed business casual, like you're a lot less formal than that, that communicates to them that their community and belonging to their community doesn't matter that much to you. And even if it's not what you intend to communicate, intention and impact aren't the same thing, but you're responsible for both. So maybe you should care a bit about how you look. And even if it is for self-expression, that can matter a lot, especially with like expressing your gender. That can be a lot of fun. You can be value neutral toward whether or not you're pretty and still really want to look cool or look interesting or wear t-shirts that express your interests so that you can talk to other people with those interests or something. You know what I mean? Like there can be value in being deliberate about how you look in a way that has absolutely nothing to do with beauty standards. And to be clear, I think body neutrality is way better than body positivity. If nothing else, it can't really be sold to you. It's not about aesthetics, so what can they sell you? The one thing that body neutrality is sometimes vulnerable to in terms of marketing is the idea of wellness instead of beauty, talking about wellness, which I still think came from body positivity, because you can't be working out or worrying about your health for the sake of skinniness, because that would go against body positivity. So now we're going to focus on wellness and how you feel instead. I do think body neutrality does focus a lot on how you feel, and that's not great either, because that can also be sold to you. I hate marketing. I hate when stuff can be sold to me, man. That is the worst part about all of this. It's probably the worst part about being a woman is everything is designed to like exploit you in some way. So I don't like body positivity. I'm not doing body neutrality. So what do? I'll explain what I do, but understand it's not a cohesive ideology. It's not a social movement. It's just what works for me. And so I'll like loosely call it like a healthy detachment. I am in a way detached from how I look, how close I am to beauty standards and like what my body can do. Because like I said, I have disabilities and they change over time. So I don't want to focus too much on how I feel or what I can do either. And it's very much informed by that. Having chronic pain really teaches you detachment. I can focus on something and also be in pain without it taking away from my focus because I've had so much practice. And that detachment means that when my arm isn't working well, like right now my arm doesn't straighten all the way. That's been true for over 10 years for me. I don't think like, man, I'm so mad at my arm. I just think, oh, that sucks. Like that's a situation. My body is at any given moment a situation that I'm encountering. I'm going to come back to this, but I am not my body. I am that which experiences being in my body. I don't know if that makes sense, but I will explain that. The other backdrop for me is that I've never been a feminine person, so there's always been a hard cap as to how pretty I can be considered by traditional beauty standards. And so I've never really been interested in them. Like as a little kid, when I would be dressed nice for church and people would tell me that I'm pretty because I'm wearing a dress, it did, I would say, less than nothing for me. Honestly, I was uncomfortable with the fact that every time I looked feminine, I got validation. And when I didn't, I would get negative feedback or nothing. I wouldn't have been able to articulate that at like 8. I would have just been like, why does it matter if I look good? I'm sure it's annoying to all those well-meaning adults who were just like, a little girl's in a dress. Let's tell her she's pretty. And like I said, I'm more masculine and I've always been an athlete. I want to look like an athlete. Like I really like the idea of someone being able to look at my body and see that I'm athletic. And so that's one of my goals. Like I want to get my body toward that. It's not because I'm like, I need to be attractive. It's just like, I think athletes look cool and I want to be like them. Like I'll turn on a football game and be like, yeah, I'm like them. Because why not? It's fun. I'm not doing it for other people. Plenty of other people, I'm sure, would look at women who are more muscular or look at me being more masculine and not like it. Like, I'm sure I would get more rewarded and more validated by other people if I leaned into femininity, but I'm not going to do that because whether other people like me or not, I still want to be authentically represented to other people. And my body's a part of that. Like, my body is just a part of my self-expression to whatever extent I want it to be. And honestly, I think that can give me a really healthy approach to like working out and trying to get in shape because I don't feel any moral obligation to be in shape. It's just really cool. And so when I try hard and it works, it's super rewarding and fulfilling. And when I try hard and it doesn't work, it kind of doesn't matter. And I'm not like super upset about it because that's the detachment, right? I'm not morally attached to whether or not I succeed in getting stronger or losing weight or whatever. I don't know if at this point I've articulated myself well enough that this can be received how I want it to be. But basically, I also think that if you want to work out just for the sake of being more attractive, like if you're like, it would be really hot and cool if I got a 6-pack and then like a bunch of tattoos and made it so that I look super attractive, even if it's like that is you adhering to beauty standards, I also think that's fine. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And if you losing weight makes other people insecure, you are not responsible for that insecurity. You are responsible for your impact in terms of what you say, how you talk about your body in front of other people and things like that. But just you being healthy, you're not responsible if that makes someone else feel bad. That is them needing to work out their own feelings, and that's okay. So sometimes I do count calories. I find that it helps me reach my goals, and if I don't count calories, everything's too vague and I have no idea if I'm on the right track. And so I need to do more extreme things. Otherwise, how do I know if it's working? Whereas counting calories allows for moderation because moderation doesn't, like, it's not like a bell goes off in your head like, okay, I've done moderation. Like, how do you know? In order to be safe, you just have to do more and more. And I don't want to do that. So I count calories. I go to the gym a lot. I lift really heavy and I try to get stronger every time I go there. And it is so fun and so fulfilling. And I started working out to try to look more like an athlete. And now, even if that weren't on the table, I would work out anyway because it is so fun to get stronger. It's improved my energy. It's improved my mobility, improved my disability, like everything that it can possibly affect, it has affected positively. So I'm not going to stop doing that. And it has nothing to do with beauty standards. I want to look cool. And no matter what the beauty standards are, I'm an athlete, so I think looking like an athlete is cool. Before I end, I want to come back to the idea that you are not your body. If all of this feels super inaccessible to you, what I would recommend is sitting with the fact that you are not your body. You aren't your body or your mind. You are a secret third entity that experiences those things. I think the best example of that is pain. You're experiencing pain, but like you aren't, your leg that hurts. You are that which experiences what it's like to have a leg that hurts. Does that make sense? Like, there's a layer of separation there. You can't really have detachment unless you're aware of that separation. And you can practice that by, like, doing a meditation. You can literally sit still and close your eyes and be as, like, sensory deprived as possible and notice how your body still offers you stimulation. Your mind offers you thoughts. You aren't necessarily creating the thoughts. You are just experiencing your mind. That also can have some other benefits, like making you feel less guilty for having like mental illness or whatever. Like you are experiencing your mind. You didn't create it. Like you can do a lot about it. You can change a lot about it, but you aren't your mind. You are that which experiences it. You're having an experience, not failing in some way. I think the main takeaway from all of this is that your body isn't that important. Like, it's just a vessel for your life, and that's great. Do what you want with it, and obviously skewing things toward health is probably in your best interest, but like, it doesn't really matter in terms of morality. It's up to you. And if you don't think that your body or how you look is like super important, you're gonna be a lot less vulnerable to trends that tell you things like heroin chic is in right now. Like, you do not need that. I'm just trying to kind of offer another alternative as opposed to the trends, because I want everyone to continue to be in the habit of being really critical of trends, especially when people are trying to sell you things. Let me know what you think. I tried to like cover all of the bases, but obviously all bases cannot be covered. There's gonna be experiences that I didn't represent. All right, thanks for watching. You know what's in right now? White spots on the tummy. Do you have one of those?